one of the questions I get the most often from candidates that I screen is, what can I look forward to in terms of support to my teaching in the classroom? I hired a great teacher out of California last year from Mount Jordan. She stayed in Canyons District teaching science at the high school now. She might stay, but I doubt it. Focus on the students. Focus on the kids. Make sure that you're having fun working with the kids every day. I want to make sure that you understand one thing, that your child is important to me. And I know that they're the most important thing to you. And so it's really important that we work together for them. Rarely, if ever, once I've kind of made that shift in how I handle discipline, have ever had a parent not thank me and say, wow, this is the first time my kid has gotten in trouble, and I've really walked away feeling good about it. Said, gosh, I just want to be able to do my work in the back of a classroom. I would offer that advice to district office folks, to people who are coaching teachers, to make sure that they're in the classroom, seeing what's happening every day.
And welcome to the Transformative Principal. I'm excited to have you back for part 2 of my interview with Doug Hallenbeck at Union Middle School in Sandy, Utah. In this episode, we are going to hear about how to attract and retain great talent, and he's going to have a nice little side discussion about general trends in teaching and hiring and retirement, and pretty fun little discussion. He's also going to talk about what is special in his office and his advice for how to be a transformative assistant principal. I hope you enjoy it. I'd like to welcome a new sponsor to the podcast this week. It is creativesforeducation.com. Have you ever noticed that teachers are really great at teaching our students, but don't have the time or the training to create beautiful things? Creativesforeducation.com does that for you. As an educator, you can sign up for a free account, request the designer create a project for you, give them some guidelines and tips, and then within about a week, they'll get something back to you that looks amazing. Go to creativesforeducation.com, click on the design requests, and you'll be able to look at some of the things that have already been done. Then sign up for a free account and start making beautiful things for your students. That's creativesforeducation.com or creatives4edu.com.
I'll be honest with you, Jethro. I'm very worried about the state of teaching in Utah in terms of we're in a teacher shortage. We're going to be in a major teacher shortage here. It's being masked by the economy here. Utah's economy is better than other states, but we have been able to hire some incredible talent. I have Skyped on the phone with people all over the country looking to move here because there's jobs here.
Right.
And I'm very fearful because I lived through times when I first started as an assistant trying to hire people back in the mid-2000s when the market was, you could not find a teacher. And if you had a teacher on that was on your list that you wanted to hire, they had 3 or 4 offers on the table. And so it is going to be a very precarious thing down the road. I had a conversation with one of our board members just a few weeks ago who's been attending some committee meetings through the State Office of Ed, and they're talking about how do we bolster retention programs, how do we support our teachers to be in the classroom, and we are headed for a shortage. So it's not falling on deaf ears, but quite honestly, I've said this before, we've got the best teacher prep programs that Wyoming and Nevada can buy.
Right.
Because, unfortunately, we keep losing some great talent to neighboring states. And it's just dollars and cents. It comes down to, hey, how am I going to feed my family?
Right.
And it's an unfortunate thing, but it is something that we face in Utah.
Yeah, so what we're going to have to start being much more cognizant of is how do we attract talent to our schools when there's no financial differentiation, there's no, reimbursing of student loans. There's for Title I, so we have that advantage. But it's also a much harder school. how do you think we should attract that talent to our school? What can we do as schools to get people to want to be at our schools?
That's a good question, and I would answer it this way. One of the questions I get most often from candidates that I screen is, what can I look forward to in terms of support to my teaching in the classroom? And that gives me the opportunity to talk about the EPL coaches that we have, which provide excellent professional development. It gives me the opportunity to talk about the summer professional development, the fact that they will have mentor teachers in the classroom, or available to them. The administrative staff would be available. We talk about those resources, and you can see candidates get very excited about what we have here in Canyons because of those kinds of things. They want to make sure that they have that support, and I think that's probably the number one thing that we can do to retain those new teachers is make sure that they have that support in the classroom. I mean, statistically, 50% of teacher graduates never go into the profession. Of the 50% that do, 50% of those are gone within the first 5 years. So if you're only putting 1 out of 4 teachers out of prep programs into classrooms for a career, you're going to end up with ultimately a problem, a staffing problem, a human resource problem in the end. It's just, I was very disappointed in 2011 when they created Tier 2 retirement in the state of Utah. I don't think that that's going to help with retention and longevity. I was disappointed. That's just not the move you want to do. And I understand it's an economic, we want to keep that funded. We want to make sure that it's there and those kinds of things. But I think that was a move that hopefully they'll legislate back out of it, because I think that's going to hurt Utah in the long run. Other states have moved to it, and I get that. But when we look at what we're asking teachers to do in Utah, at a Tier 2, 35 years for retirement, with a number of the class sizes that we're asking them to work with, we are going to burn teachers out left and right. We're not going to get any of them to that point, and they're just going to leave. Yeah. And it's not solving our problems.
At a certain point, it becomes, you might as well stay in a district or in a state because you put in so many years. And with 35 years, then that makes it,
all bets are off.
Right. I can go have another full career in another state instead of sticking around here to try to meet that end goal that, to a brand new teacher, 35 years is a long time away. And most of them are not thinking about that.
Nope.
And so they may take a job to have one, but when they're in it 5 years and start looking at that, they're going to say, maybe this isn't the right place for me.
Yeah. And do you blame them?
Yeah.
I don't blame them at all. And of course comes back to commitment. Are they committed? And if they're not, we've got some great teachers right here at Union from around the country, and a couple of ladies from Michigan, fantastic teachers. Why are they here? They're here because there's jobs here. The Midwest and East Coast, there's no jobs. And I would hate to lose them. But I also, again, getting to know your teachers, I know that their families are back there. They're missing their families. And probably if given the right opportunity, they're going to bail. And they're going to go back. I hired a great teacher out of California last year from Mount Jordan. She stayed in Canyons District teaching science at the high school now. She might stay, but I doubt it. I would doubt it. I would think she probably would go back to California. And, so there's just 3 instances that I've come across in the last 2 years of teachers that would, are here for the job. They're not here for the retirement. And they'll bail. And so how do we attract them? How do we keep them here? How do we make it so? it's a great place to live. It's why I moved here. But ultimately, you've got to be able to provide for your family and be realistic.
Yeah. That was a great side discussion, by the way. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that.
I'm sure that's not what you want to put in this blog, but
no, that's fine. That's great. I think that's going to spark some good discussion. It's a very real issue that we got to be aware of. So, so another question is, what is advice you would give to an assistant principal today that they can start doing today to help them become a transformative assistant principal?
It's been said that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. I would say to any assistant principal, if they're recently out of the classroom and they're in this job and they're trying to figure out what should I focus on. Focus on the students. Focus on the kids. Make sure that you're having fun working with the kids every day, because it's very easy. The assistant principal, of course, we deal with a lot of discipline. We deal with those kinds of things, part of the job. And I'm happy to do that job. But we also can get mired down when we only see the students that are struggling behaviorally in classes. And so I would say to them, make sure that they get out and be in the classrooms, be with student body officers or student councils, or make yourself part of awards and positive recognition, and make sure that your behavior approach is one that is always going to be positive with students, and making sure that parents know that your approach is always going to be positive with their child. I think that, and this has happened to me over the years, where parents, they're different today than when I started teaching. There's, unfortunately, Jethro, there's some animosity, or I don't know the right word, but there's a feeling from parents sometimes, not all parents, that it's an us and them. Mm-hmm. And I've faced this in conversations, and I've had to stop conversations and say, wait a minute, I want to make sure that you understand one thing, that your child is important to me. And I know that they're the most important thing to you. And so it's really important that we work together for them. And so
I just got some goosebumps.
Oh.
And I'm not even a parent of one of your students at your school, but I can feel that you've said that many times before, and that that's really what you believe, and that's really how you feel. And I wish that everybody could be looking into your eyes when you said that, because you definitely were emanating a care and concern and love for the student. And this is crazy that we are fighting when we really both want what's best. And that's awesome.
Yeah. And it took me a little bit to get to that point, and to realize that is the approach that I have to take when I get some adversarial parents. And once you've reached that, once you've established that common ground, the conversation goes very differently.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to go to China a couple of years ago, and we got to meet with some principals while we were there. And one of the principals asked the group that we were with, how do you help students that aren't engaged? Well, we face that problem here.
Everywhere. It's universal.
And so I started talking about, talk to me about how involved your parents are, and how connected the parents are with the school. And for them, that was kind of an unheard of, parents, and in my opinion, from what he was saying, again, I was going through a translator, so some things get messed up, was that when a parent sent their child to the school, it was the school's responsibility. They took over, and the parent really had nothing to say. Nothing, no input, no opinion, nothing. And I told him, I said, the triangle is the strongest geometric shape.
Right.
And so in my triangle, I have teachers, students, and parents. And when you've got these groups at the points of your triangle, you've got a connection. You've got a strong bond that are working for that child. And no matter where the pressure comes from at any point, you're going to be stronger by working together. And for him, it was like, wow, I never even thought about getting parents involved. And I don't know if there's a cultural connection that would prevent that from happening, but he was kind of amazed that we got our parents so involved. And so I think that for a young administrator just starting out, making sure that you're communicating with those parents and making sure that they know that you care about their child, and trying your hardest to create that triangle with your teachers, your parents, and your students, and being, sometimes you're the glue, you're the one in the middle that pulls it all together and makes sure that those joints stay connected.
Right.
I use those terms because I'm an old shop teacher. So I've taught about engineering. I've taught about, those stressors and things like that. And I think if we can establish that triangle, that the children are going to succeed. They're going to be able to have that support system and scaffold them to very high levels of achievement, as long as we can help and make sure that happens.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. It's definitely a hard thing to do. Going back to your idea of communicating with parents and making sure they know your approach is positive. It's really hard when you're the assistant principal and you're dealing with discipline all day, every day, to establish that. How do you establish that communication and that awareness with the parents?
When I first started back at Elkridge, the other assistant principal said, well, this is how we handle suspensions. This is how we, and of course, back then it was always exclusionary. That was pretty much the whole discipline system. I've learned a lot over the years. But one of the things that I would always do, because unfortunately, we still have to suspend kids and those kinds of things. We still have to have some of that. I use a lot less of it today than I certainly did back then. But when I bring a student back from a discipline issue like that, and I bring their parents in, we reinstate them to school, I always use a statement similar to this, and that is, I just want you to know that we are a school. We are about teaching and learning. And I want us to walk away from this meeting with learning happening, and that your child learns from this experience and learns how to conduct themselves or behave appropriately. And it just gives a great opportunity to put together an improvement plan and talk about how this affects their life, whatever it is, if it's a fight or it's bringing something to school or weapons or those kinds of things. Making sure that the student walks out and your parents walk out feeling like they're supported in this child's learning, that this experience, although it's not a pleasant one, that they walk away feeling good about what I've taught them, what they have learned, and verbalizing that in front of me, in front of their parents. That's always been an important thing to me, to make sure that, again, it comes back to being student-centered. It is a hard job. I mean, you're judge, jury, and executioner all at once. And it's a tough position, but I always make sure that I tell students, you know what, you made a bad choice, but that does not make you a bad kid ever. I don't want you to think that, and I don't want anybody to tell you that. I'm going to be the first one to tell you that, yeah, you made a bad choice here. But that's why we're here. We're here to talk about it with you and your parents and myself. And what can you do better in the future? What can you do to change that? I talk a lot about careers with kids and what they want to do and how they want to attain that. What are the steps going to be? We're right in the cusp of high school here. So what is that going to look like for you? How can you better position yourself to be successful in high school? Don't be scared of it. Be excited about it. Be ready for it. Right. That's the gateway to your career in college. And how are we going to do that? Behaving like this probably isn't going to get you there, right? And so, I rarely, if ever, once I've kind of made that shift in how I handle discipline, have ever had a parent not thank me and say, wow, this is the first time my kid has gotten in trouble. And I've really walked away feeling good about it, that what you did here was really important and impactful. And I found that instances of recidivism have gone way down for kids that I've worked with through this process. And I've, the other assistant principals that I've worked with have kind of adopted what I've done. I'm teaching my intern right now how to do that and to make sure that we have those connections, because it's a great opportunity right there to connect with those parents and make sure that, again, we're a school. We're about teaching and learning. That's what I want you to walk away with a learning experience from this.
That's really amazing. The idea that parents would walk away saying, my kid messed up, but I feel good about it is pretty powerful. Yeah. And that's awesome. So the last question I always ask people is, what's something in your office? You're sparsely decorated, but what's something that you have in here that is meaningful to you, or that is an anchor to you, or that is something that reminds you of what you're doing? Is there something in here that you, that has a special connection?
They're oh man. I'm still trying to unpack, to be honest with you. I moved mid-year and have been running ever since. So, it is pathetically. One of the things I think that I covet the most, and they're not out, but, are thank you notes that I get from parents and students and teachers. I collect those. I cherish those because that makes me feel like I have really touched someone at the school in a positive way, that they would take the time to write me a thank you note. Emails are great, and we pass them around like it's, because it's so simple and easy. Right. But for someone to handwrite a thank you note, those are precious to me. Those are really important, and I try to write them as well. To teachers, to make that connection, to give them that little attaboy, attagirl for things that happen, because I think that those are just those mementos that it's tangible. It's something you can hold on to. It's something you can look back to, and say, yeah, that makes me feel good that I reached out and I worked with them and they recognize that.
Yeah, so that's really great. I've tried to do a better job writing thank you notes as well. And Sandra Dahl-Houlihan, who's the principal at Sandy, I interviewed her a couple of weeks ago, and she said that she had a teacher or a support staff come up to her and say that she had kept every single note that Sandra had written to her. And, those simple things really do mean a lot. So what I tried to do this year is I did it when I did evaluations for teachers. After I finished the observation part of the evaluation, before we had the professional development meeting when we got their scores back, I wrote them a thank you note, thanking them for the opportunity to visit with them, to learn how they were doing things in their classroom and to observe them. And I felt really good giving those. And I had a couple teachers thank me and really mean it. But I'm sure that meant more than people gave me feedback about. And I know for me, sharing that information with them made me feel better and made me more excited to be working with them. And so it helps both ends of that when you do that. So it's neat that you keep those and treasure them.
Yeah. And I've carried them from job to job, and I still have a stack. And some days you get down and there's a couple things that I do, and that's one of the things. I look at those great things that people have given to me, and I get out into classrooms. Yeah. I don't think we can do that enough. I worked with Molly Hart for a short bit. She's the one who actually took over Mount Jordan when I didn't take the position. And she said, gosh, I just want to be able to do my work in the back of a classroom. Right. And she's so funny because she's looking all the time for a stand-up desk that she could take her laptop and wheel it around. And, it was a 2-story building. And who knows, maybe the new building she'll be able to do that. Right. But that kind of inspired me to try to get out there more. I mean, it's so hard. We want to get out there. We want to do those walkthroughs. We want to give that feedback. We want to be communicating with those teachers about the good things that they do. And it's probably one of the hardest things to do is to get out there and to be able to do that. We've got a lot of young teachers this year. So, doing JPAS or official evaluations are one way, but it's really, but to get out there. And I think it's not easy to do, but make those connections with the teachers and make sure that they know, and giving those thank you notes to them will make it very, very precious. So that's interesting.
Well, I think our time is up because you got your meeting to go to, but I sure appreciate your time. And is there anything you want to say as a sign off? Or
enjoy what you do and love the kids. Laugh every day. And if you're not out there with the kids every single day, you're going to miss the boat. I worry for principals that don't get out there because for one reason or another. And I haven't worked with any. I've worked with some pretty amazing people, but I can see how that is, when you get to the principal level, can remove you from students. I would offer that advice to district office folks, to people who are coaching teachers, to make sure that they're in the classroom seeing what's happening every day, because it changes. The technology changes, the methods change, the engagement strategies. You do need to stay up on the latest and the greatest, and so I would encourage any administrator, from the vice principal all the way up to the superintendent, to be in the classrooms, because again, it's back to the students.
Right.
And keeping perspective of why we're all here is to stay focused on the students.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
thanks so much, Doug. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Jethro.
Another great interview has concluded. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned a lot from Doug. He is a great assistant principal, and if I ever have the opportunity to work under him as his assistant, I would be more than honored. If you would like to get in touch with me, you certainly can on Twitter. I am at Jethro Jones, or you can send me an email at jethrojones@gmail.com. Please be sure to share this with your friends, like us on Facebook, do all that social sharing stuff so that we can get the word out about how to be a transformative principal. And be sure to check out our sponsor, creatives4edu.com. We'll see you next week on The Transformative Principal.